Greetings. Darryl Davis here again with yet another episode of the history of the Gosford Musical Society. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite shows, Shrek the Musical. This extravaganza was done in 2018 at our home base, the Laycock Street Community Theater. Now, on a visit to the USA a number of years beforehand, I had sat in the audience of the Broadway production of Shrek. And I gotta tell you, I thought it was magnificent. I loved the story, I loved the characters, and I loved the musical score. So when I came back, being on the committee of the society, I said, I think we ought to do Shrek. Now, we had put in to do it, but it hadn't been available, and we waited years to get the rights to put it on. And when we did, I put in to direct it, and thank goodness they picked me, and I loved directing this show. As we can see, that's our production team that was involved in this show. You know, every show has got big production teams, and these are just some of the main characters that played in there. People like the musical director, the choreographer, the costume designer, the production managers. So what I'm going to do in this explanation today is take you through a lot of photographs and tell the story of Shrek through the photographs, which also outline the costumes and the stage settings. Now, the musical is based on the 2001 film. So the film came first, in this case, and then it was put on Broadway in 2008. Well, start the show. 7-year-old Shrek, little Shrek, is sent by his mother and father to go out into the world and to make his own living. Now, he is unusual because Shrek is an ogre. And you can see by the horns there. They warn him, be careful, because people don't like ogres, and they are liable to treat you very, very badly just because the way you look. In his first little venture away from the house, on his way to wherever, he runs into a group of villagers, and they do a number with him, and at the end they are going to, as they say, barbecue him. He manages to escape and tries to find where he's going to live. Now, at the same time, in a faraway kingdom, was a little other 7-year-old named Fiona. And her parents say to her, Fiona, you're going to have to go away. You're going to go to a tower that's guarded by a dragon. You see, her father, the king, had made an agreement with the fairy godmother. But suffice to say, little Fiona is thrown out just like little Shrek. Now, it's interesting that they meet briefly. I had them cross from one end of the stage, circle each other and around and continue their journey. They are going to meet again many, many years later, of course. Well, Shrek finds a neglected, secluded swamp, and there he grows up and lives, well, I won't say happily, but he lived in this swamp for many, many years. And he sings this song called Big, Bright, Beautiful World. That's the big song at the beginning of the show, the really big number. He says in it, you know, I don't care about anyone. I know you hate me for what I look like, so you can take your big, bright, beautiful world and shove it. He's an angry character. He's a really angry ogre. Now, the actor that played that is Joseph Issa. And I wanted somebody that was tall, and Joseph was about 6'3", and we had to add a lot of padding to Joseph because he's not quite that rotund at all. He was just perfect, absolutely perfect in that role. You see, prosthetics, particularly around the ears and so forth, prosthetics played a big part in this show. So we actually bought that cone, that cap part that goes around his head. And then our makeup artist, Elizabeth, did her magic and turned him into that. And it was great. He had to wear 2 microphones, by the way, because the sweat was so pronounced all the time because he was underneath that skull cap and under that heavy padding. And so we had 2 microphones just in case one cut out. Now, I don't think it ever did. That was a wise thing by the sound technician to do that. Well, Shrek's house, you can see that in the background, that was a work of art. In fact, it was a big wire structure, wire and wood. Set designer David Rowe would have people come in from the society and they would have a paper mache night. and they added paper mache all the time. I think after about the third working session, it was made and then it could be painted. On stage, we had 49 characters. Now the show's only written for about 35. So we added some characters, which I'll show you later. But we had probably triple that many people that auditioned for the show. And it's always sad when you're not able to get everybody involved. Now the show called for a lot of props. And for instance, in his song that he does, he picks up a skunk and he uses it for deodorant. And the props people had it worked out. So when he picked it and pushed the button, spray came out, and you actually were able to see him, doing that with a skunk, which was really quite amazing. What occurs right after that song, his swamp is suddenly invaded by a mob of fairy tale creatures. You see, they had been living in the kingdom of Julok, but they got thrown out, tossed out by a horrible little creature called Lord Farquaad. And when they arrive in the swamp, I mean, they are not impressed. They hate it, really hate it. They do a song called Story of My Life. And each of the characters, you see them come to life, and they're led by a character called Pinocchio. Pinocchio's outfit was marvelous. You can see he's a wooden boy, isn't he? He's a wooden boy, although when he tells you that he's not a wooden boy, his nose grows. So one of the things we had to do was to have his nose be able to grow and go back again. And he actually had a cable running down from the mask down through his shoulder and down through the arm. And when he pulled that cable, the nose would go out. And that was clever. We always had him turn sideways so the audience could really see that nose grow. And I think that actually happened about 3 times in the show. This young man was a professional dancer. He's just a wonderful character. And we were lucky to have him in this show. To show you how important makeup was in this show, on the left-hand side, you will see the makeup table in our middle room of our shed, our rehearsal shed. And so that each character had an idea of what their character's going to be like. And they then made themselves up. So we had a number of workshops before we went on stage to do that. We probably had 3 or 4 makeup artists that came and helped. Just as fun, on the other side, you'll see a little Shrek. And I used to put it on a chair wherever we were rehearsing, and the cast would come in and pat him on the head and say, "Hi, little Shrek," and that was a lot of fun, actually. To show you some of the makeup that we had and some of the characters, this is the big bad wolf. The big bad wolf. And we have the Queen of Hearts. Now, interesting enough, she's not in the script, but I wanted some more characters, so we invented a few, and I thought Queen of Hearts would be good. On the other side, we see the Mad Hatter, who's in the script, but Mr. Smee we also added as a character because we wanted to have more people involved in the show. And you can see there the really distinct makeup that each of them would have. The costumes are brilliant. It was really a vibrant, vibrant show. Because Shrek is so big and scary, the fairy tale people go to him and say, "Shrek, we hate your swamp, and we know you don't want us here. So will you go to Lord Farquaad and get him to allow us back into the kingdom, and you can get your swamp back?" And so indeed, Shrek agrees. That's what I'll do. I will go to Julok, and I'll tell this little character, I want my swamp back. Well, he gets out his trusty map because he's never been outside of his swamp in years. He's probably been there for 20 years. And he starts to try and find his way around. Now, one of the clever things we were able to do, just behind him, were a lot of trees. They were probably about 2 meters in length, and they were flies that were on track. And actually, they could move the trees around. And it was really exciting because when actors began to walk in through them, it looked like they were going through a whole forest rather than just one tree, if you know what I mean. And that was really exciting. Well, on his journey, he hears a scream of anguish from a donkey, a talking donkey, who is now being, just about ready to be killed by Lord Farquaad's guards. Shrek saves him, saves the donkey, scares off Lord Farquaad's men. And we can see that the donkey is absolutely delighted. He's so happy. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to be your friend for life. and I will show you the way to Julock. Even though he's never been there, I will show you the way to Julock. And he sings this wonderful song called Don't Let Me Go. Now, the actor is a fantastic actor, Adam Young. He wore a very heavy donkey outfit, very heavy and very hot. And when he would come off from that end of that song, that sweat was pouring down him. So there was always somebody in the side stage to mop up that sweat. We now go to Julock, and there we meet the evil, horrid little Lord Farquaad. This was played by a young man who, I'll tell you, in years to come, write his name down, Finn Goff. You're going to see him. He is an extraordinary talent. He had to play this entire show on his knees because Lord Farquaad was only like, 2.5 feet tall. So he had pads, like bricky pads, and then he had little false legs in front of him. It was really funny. But I got to say, everybody in the crowd loved Lord Farquaad. I mean, they didn't love him. They loved his acting. It was fantastic. Now, one of the funniest scenes in the beginning of the Act 1 was the encounter between Lord Farquaad and the gingerbread man. The actor there is moving the gingerbread's mouth, and I've got Giselle, who played the part of the gingerbread man. She is actually side stage doing the dialogue. But you see, gingerbread man fits very important in this story. You see, Lord Farquaad is not a king, and the only way he can become a king is to marry a royal princess. So the gingerbread man happens to know the location of a royal princess that Lord Farquaad could marry. Well, the gingerbread man is tortured to try and get him to tell where the princess is. You can see there his leg's been pulled off, and the horrible Lord Farquaad is ready to pull off his gumdrop buttons. And gingerbread man spills his guts and says, okay, who you're looking for is Princess Fiona, and she lives in a tower, but it's guarded by a dragon. And that scares Farquaad a little bit. So he's trying to decide how I can get her. That takes us to the Julock dancers. Now, these are the perfect citizens of Julock. They are so perfect because they look perfect. And they're also perfect, that city is, because they got rid of all the freaks. All the freaks, the fairy tale people, have been sent away. You'll see here the difference in size. Look how little he is. Those wigs we did buy, but each of those costumes were made by our GMS costume people. And they looked absolutely fantastic. Shrek now arrives, he and the donkey, and he demands his swamp back. And Farquaad says, I'll make you a deal. Make you a deal. I'll give your swamp back if you go and rescue Princess Fiona. And Shrek says, okay, I'll do that. So that sends him off to a new journey. So Farquaad's quite happy because he's got somebody to, battle the dragon. Now is where we meet Princess Fiona. Now, to make it less confusing for you, if you haven't seen the show, all three of them are Princess Fiona at different stages of their life. The little one is obviously little Fiona. On the other side, teen Fiona, and then we have mature Fiona in the middle. Now, this was interesting because when I cast this show, teen Fiona was smaller in size than mature Fiona. But she grew, and she kept growing. So what we ended up having to do, when the three of them were on together, where mature Fiona's in the middle there, we actually had to put a step, and she would step up on that. That happens. That's show business, I guess. Well, they sing this wonderful song together, and the three of them together were just, just absolutely magnificent. It's called I Know It's Today, and we start with young Fiona that sings. So, of course, we had two girls playing the role. We double cast it. Now, one of the things, because young Fiona is only in one scene, really, except for that crossover at the beginning, and I didn't think that was enough. So what we ended up doing was making a character for her in the ensemble when she wasn't young Fiona. She was Alice in Wonderland. Same thing happened with teen Fiona. We had two of them, and when they weren't being teen Fiona, which is only this scene, they were Little Red Riding Hood. And then we had our mature Fiona. Now, this is played by a wonderful actress who used to be my student at school many, many years ago, Jade Draper. She has directed shows for GMS. She's been in lots of shows. She's a marvelous actress and singer. So it was a great benefit having her in this show. What I'm going to say to you now is, the big question is, will Shrek rescue Fiona? Will they get back from the dragon? We shall see when I bring you Shrek Part 2. Stay tuned. Thank you.